Hey family, what's up? Welcome, welcome to Sergeant Dorsey Speaks. I am live at 5 on Thursday again, and so I am just wired for sound, family. I am so happy to see so many of you, my YouTube subbies that are already here, uh, in the room, in line, coming through the door. I appreciate all of you being here. And let me just say, DB, dude, thank you so much. I don't even know what town you're in because we've been doing this virtual thing in the barbershop, right? But we're going to have a fireside chat because I, at the very least, owe you an adult beverage whenever I see you. Thank you for sharing this broadcast with so many of the people that you know. And I want to welcome all of you in. My name is Cheryl Dorsey. I'm a retired 20-year veteran sergeant of the Los Angeles Police Department, and I have been doing this now for a number of years, just coming and talking based on my lived experiences about what it is, number one, to be a police officer when you look like me on a major metropolitan police department like the Los Angeles Police Department, and number two, what we need to do about all of the things that are occurring across the nation in our communities involving police officers. And the reason, for those of you who are new to my YouTube channel and for my Facebook family, welcome to you guys as well. My day oneers, I appreciate you. Um, for so many times, for so often, I would see families who are hurting, who lost a loved one, and they really didn't have the words to say to a police chief who's savvy and used to getting in front of a camera and kind of talking circles around them. And then when the family would try to assert themselves, the first thing that you hear pushback, you don't know what it is to be a police officer. And if you just walked a day in our shoes, you'd understand how difficult it is. And police officers have to make snap judgment decisions and all of that, right? Minimize, mitigate. And so I realized that everything that I had been through in my 20 years on the Los Angeles Police Department had prepared me for now. Duh, who knew? My God, because he's amazing. And so I get to come to you and talk to you in a real way about what I know. And while others may not agree with what I say, I often tell folks your agreement's not required. But what they can't do is say I'm making it up, and they can't say that I'm lying. And anybody who I speak on can't say that I don't know what I'm talking about because I've done the job. They can't say that I haven't walked a day in their shoes. I walked more than a day. I walked 20 years. I spent 20 years in an LAPD uniform in patrol. And so that is the basis for many of my opinions that I share, my lived experiences. And while again, some may not agree, it's very difficult to argue with me based on my lived experiences. And what's been happening over these many years that I've been coming to you guys and just sharing with you what it is that I know, because I know what I know. I hear people say, well, we're the good officers and we wish there were more like you. And why don't the good officers speak up? And I know that they're out there because, number one, I worked with many of them on the Los Angeles Police Department during my 20 years. So I know that they exist. I know that there are officers out there who do speak up like I do. And I know that they pay a mighty price for having done so. And at some point, I'm going to introduce you to some of those good officers who did speak up and who were retaliated against, some who lost their jobs, some who lost that pension that they had been working so long and so hard for and were fired at the 11th hour by a police department who obviously had loyalties to that entity, to that organism, and not so much to the employee. And so I'll introduce you to some of the people that I've come to know over these years. But what I wanted to do first was introduce you to some folks who I've come to know in about the last 5 years, who I found out speak like me and look like me, and we're all across the nation. And I found out, I got to know these people as a result of Reddit Hudson, who you met last week. Reddit Hudson is a former St. Louis, Missouri police officer who had been speaking out mightily on MSNBC with regards to the whole Mike Brown murder and what was going on there in his community. And then I met him through a mutual friend who then he introduced me to some other folks. And so tonight you're going to meet my sister in the struggle. She is a retired 20-year veteran police officer on the Philadelphia Police Department. And so we have been doing this work. We get together when we can. We have all met up and traveled to DC to speak with Senator Sheila Jackson Lee. About 3 or 4 years ago, we were acknowledged on the floor of the Judiciary Committee while we were there, and it was our hope to get the attention of some other legislators, in addition to Sheila Jackson Lee, who we met with in her office, and maybe get an opportunity to speak before Congress about the things that we know could be done differently, should be done differently based on our lived experiences from major police departments all across the country. And so we are members of an organization called the National Coalition of Law Enforcement Officers for Justice, Reform, and Accountability. Well, since we have been doing our thing in different corners, my sister girl, Rochelle, went on to do even a bigger thing. She did that thing that I just won't do, family, which is she ran for an elected office and she won last year. And so let me bring on my sister girl, Rochelle Bilal, Sheriff Rochelle Bilal. And as I bring her on, let me tell you who my sister in the struggle, my sister in law enforcement is. Sheriff Rochelle Bilal is the first elected African-American woman sheriff in a 181-year history of the Philadelphia Sheriff's Office. In fact, Sheriff Bilal is the office's first ever elected woman. Sheriff Bilal is a 27-year veteran of the Philadelphia Police Department, and she also served for 13 years as the president of the Guardian Civic League, a law enforcement community oversight organization made up of over 2,500 active and retired Philadelphia police officers. As a Philadelphia police officer, Sheriff Bilal served in units that focused on sex crimes and drug trafficking, including work in HIDTA, high intense drug and traffic areas, a joint task force with the FBI and DEA. Sheriff Bilal is an advocate of criminal justice reform and encourages community engagement and outreach with her office. As sheriff, she is working to improve the efficiency and engagement of more than 400 employees of the department. The sheriff's office has a $26 million budget and oversees court security, prisoner transportation to and from court, as well as managing sheriff's sales, court-ordered sales of foreclosed and tax delinquent properties. Ooh-wee. That sounds like a mouthful right there, sister girl. So let me just say to you, welcome, welcome.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me. I appreciate being on here and especially hanging out with you because, you know, we all zooming across this world and hang out with you for a while and talk to your friends and your followers is a pleasure.
And you know what's so cool about what we all do, and of course I started this off with Dr. DeLacy Davis from East Orange, New Jersey. He was a sergeant over there. But what's so cool about what we do is we just talk, right? We just talk about our experiences as Black women, as Black people, and then coincidentally we can throw in that whole law enforcement thing and say, you know, girl, it's gonna be real informal. I just want to talk with you like we do, and I just want everybody to watch and listen to us. And if someone has some questions, feel free to type it into the comments, and I will, as best I can, because I'm a one-man gang over here, try to see your comments, acknowledge them, and read them so that either I can respond or the sheriff can respond. So why don't we start off, Rochelle, and just tell everybody where this started for you, how this all began some years ago on the Philadelphia Police Department. What made you decide to join? Because one of the things that I hear from folks is, why would I want to do that? Why did you want to do that?
Well, initially, I didn't want to do this. Let me say this. In Philadelphia, people that look like me did not like police officers. Trust me, we did not like them. And I was one of them bad children that would be up on the roof throwing something down at police that come through our neighborhoods because they destroyed our neighborhoods. They treated our men, they treated my brothers, they treated just anybody in the neighborhood when they came through. And so therefore, as a child growing up, did not like police. What made me change to get into this was two factors. One, there was the Guardian Civic League, who I became president of later. Members would come through our neighborhood. They filed a lawsuit against the Philadelphia Police Department to basically say that we need to hire people that look like me that represents the city. That means we need to hire enough Black people that represented the makeup of the city. The city was 43% African American. So they filed the lawsuit and they won. So they had a consent decree that said how many of y'all take the test, that's how many of us, meaning black people, had to be in the class. And so they started coming through the neighborhoods, basically trying to get us to join the police department. At that time, I worked for the post office. And my mother thought that was a good government job, the post office. I thought it was a plantation, but my mother didn't know anything. She didn't know that. I did. And so as they came through, they constantly, this one guy by the name of Drummond constantly took our abuse because we would call him all kinds of names. Get out of here, pig. We don't want to be no cop or nothing like that. They convinced two of my childhood friends to join the force. Once they joined the force, they came back after me. You got to come join the force. Join the force. They say if you want to change, you got to change it from inside. Come join the force. So I was between the post office, which said to me, in order for you to retire, you had to reach age 65. The police department said, you reach age 45 and spend 20 years, you can retire. You do the math. That was a no-brainer. I joined the force. But immediately after joining the force and while in the police academy, I realized that there was an issue with us, white and black, and how we were treated. Because I was in the police academy, just going through the training. We was doing driver training at that time. And so the white girl who was in front of me says to the cars that pull up, you know, you didn't want to get in the car with people who just got their license because, you know, they're going to crash somewhere. So the white girl stood in front of me. She looked in the car and said, I don't want to ride with them. They just got their license. The white instructor said to her, not a problem, catch the next one. The next one came, she got in it. Now it's me. Now, what's the difference? Car pulls up. I look in the car and say, I don't want to ride with them. They just got their license. He says to me, you are insubordinate. I'm going up here to have you thrown out of the police academy. What's the difference? The difference was she was white and I was black. And that was an issue right then and there made me say that we're going to be fighting against this as long as I'm in here. So he goes up. So happened that the sergeant up there was black, who came down and asked me what happened. And I told him, white girl look in the car. He said, okay. Black girl look in the car. He came up there to you. Sergeant said, I figured that you're not going anywhere. And for 27 years, I always stopped in that driver training and said hi to that instructor, just to let him know that I was still there, even on my last time at my 27th year to go up there to qualify. So that brought me into the institution. What made me the activist today is because I'm black and I've seen unfair treatment, how they disparately treat people of color, how some of my colleagues want to play the game and want to target black men. So my struggle, more than my struggle, it was just a battle. Mine was to make sure that people were treated fairly and that you just not going to put a case on a brother. You're not even going to put a case on a sister, because I became the person that would say, okay, if you do that to them, I'm going to put them in my car, take them down to internal affairs, and I'll be their witness. And then they started calling me. They'd be like, Dag, Angela Davis, here she come. I'm like, okay, like good trouble. That's what I came on this job. Very much good trouble. That got started in that institution. And I've been there for the whole 27 years fighting against wrongfully incidents that happen between police and our people, and working in the community to build that bridge between the police and the community. So this is not new.
Is that where the Guardian Civic League came?
The Guardian Civic League started in 1956 because black cops couldn't do nothing. They couldn't ride in carts together. They couldn't go in a white neighborhood and knock on the door because they would call the police on the police. And so the Guardian Civic League formed to support each other in these incidents. And they went up against the FOP. They went up against the command structure as far as how they was divvying out assignments when it came down to black officers versus white officers. So I became a member of the Guardian Civic League. right after that, I graduated from the police academy. I ran down there because I used to see what they did to the president that started the Guardian Civic League, and I became a member. And so from then on, I worked in that organization, around that organization, as part of that organ, on the executive board, until I decided to run for president. And I was the president of that one until 2020, when I ran for election.
And what exactly does the Guardian Civic League do there in Philadelphia?
The Guardian Civic League is an organization that was formed to build the bridge between the community and police, and to be the conscience of the justice system. That means we do not accept what you say. We are not blue. We have members of all cultures and colors, but we are not blue, and we just don't follow suit, or we just don't play the game of going along to get along. So the Guardian Civic League formed in 1956. It's been there up until 20. I was the president that basically spoke out on all the issues pertaining to. One of the big issues we dealt with was they had a Facebook page, not a Facebook page, a page, a social media page called Dome Lights. Dome Lights was the page where cops would go on and just call all kinds of people out of their name and out of their character. When I came on, Dome Lights was on there calling what broke the straw, the camel that broke the straw back, was when they went on this Dome Lights social media for cops to get on there, and they just vent about every little thing. It's when they started calling our children monkeys. There was a swim club that the children from the recreation center went out to go to the swim club, and they wouldn't let them in. And so we had cops at their desk typing in, calling our children monkeys. So once we started seeing that type of attitude on this page called Dome Lights, we monitored that page for about a year. The Guardian Civic League did. And then we turned it over to the lawyers to monitor it. And I was in New York when it finally came to the end of dealing with the nonsense that the cops was putting on this social media page called Dome Lights. I was in New York. I got a call from the lawyer, said, "Where you at?" I'm in New York at the NAACP convention. They said, "Well, can you get on their cell and get your butt back here?" I said, "Why?" He said, "We're about to file the lawsuit against the city of Philadelphia for allowing cops to spit out vile and vicious comments about people of color from their desk." I hopped on that train. We filed the lawsuit against Philadelphia. Out of that lawsuit, we won, and the internet policy was developed out of that lawsuit. So the Guardian Civic League fights against craziness that happens within these departments, especially the one that we were a part of.
And that still exists currently, correct?
Currently, the present president is Crystal Coleman. She's the new president. She's the interim president. There's an election coming up, and I'm sure she'll be voted in. She was my executive vice president for a long time.
How many Blacks were in, you guys use precincts here on the West Coast, we call them divisions. Is that what you guys call them, precincts?
No, we call them districts.
Districts. So I have a question from DB wanting to know how many Blacks were in your district, but I don't think, DB, you want to know just one station, one building. I think you probably want to know, and maybe you can answer it both ways, Sheriff, how many Blacks were in your particular district where you were assigned, and then how many Blacks were on the department, if you know?
The department, while I was on, had about 34% of African Americans out of 6,500. And in the district that I came out in, because I was a part of a consent decree and lawsuit, 67% of us was in the police academy. So that was a lot of us.
67?
67% of Black people was in the police academy when I came through.
Okay.
A lot of us. So there was a lot that went to the 18th district, and that was like Southwest Philadelphia in Philadelphia area. If you know anything about Philadelphia, we went to the 18th district. So there was a lot of us in the department at that time. It was like, 34% of us was African American in the department.
Now, is the Guardian Civic League, is that an organization that the community can go to, or are they basically there to assist and facilitate officers who need to file complaints?
The community can go to the Guardian Civic League because it's a community, it's almost like your community relations organization. It's a civic organization that basically is sole mission is to build the bridge between the community and the police. So if you got an issue dealing with police, they normally call the Guardian Civic League. And once we look into it, we tell them where to go and where to file things at. And if we got to call a press conference, if we got to stand up and say this craziness is wrong, we don't have a problem with doing it.
You know, we like to use acronyms on the police department, and so I'm going to try to be mindful of it. And you too, Sheriff, as you speak. Someone was asking what was FOP. FOP stands for the Fraternal Order of Police, and so they have different names across the 18,000 police departments that exist in the U.S. In New York, you've probably heard of, I call him the Mouth, Pat Lynch. He is the president of the Benevolent Patrolmen Officers Association, and they have a Benevolent Sergeants Association, and I think they also have a Detective Endowment Association. So there's all these little groups, but they tend to cater to folks who don't look like me and the sheriff, right? And so because of that, police departments who had any number of blacks that were on there who were not being dealt with in a way that we thought was appropriate caused the genesis of other little associations that became known as, whatever you call it, Black Police Officers Association. Here in LA, on the LAPD, we have the Oscar Joe Bryant Association, which is named after a Black police officer who was killed in the line of duty. And so within that, these different local, if you will, police departments who have Black police officer associations to deal with the things that are important to us. Hey, Sean, what's up? They have a national, right? And I know, Sheriff, that you were very involved in the National Black Police Officers Association, which included all of these little organizations across these 18,000 police departments who may have a Black or two, where they had to form their own. Can you talk to the family a little bit about what the National Black Police Officers Association does on a national level, and are they helpful? Is it a place to go to for anyone who may have issue and don't feel that they can trust their local sheriff or police chief?
I was the vice chair of the National Black Police Association, which I am not anymore, but I am a part of the National Association of Black Law Enforcement Officers. They're NABLEO. The NABLEO is the acronym, NABLEO. You can look us up on the web, or you can go look up NABLEO. It's the National Association of Black Law Enforcement Officers, which I am a member of. And my vice and the present president of the Guardian Civic League, she is the vice chair of the National Association of Black Law Enforcement Officers. The national was formed so that local chapters can have a national support. That means when you speak out against issues in your area, you're not alone. You don't stand alone. That all the local chapters from all over the country and Canada and Jamaica and I think it's Australia, all the local chapters across the country and the world basically can come in and assist you if there is a situation that you need our help. So that's why the Nationals was formed. And then we went around starting local chapters all over the country because every cop, Black cop, experienced basically the same thing in their cities. And then when you file lawsuits against your department, those local chapters didn't have to reinvent the wheel. We just send them the documents that we filed here, and therefore that'll help them file what they need to file in their own city. And so therefore they'll pass it on to another city if they need to file any lawsuits. We sort of like share information and support each other when we need to, especially if you speak out and they try to come at you. We just let people know that you're not standing alone as a local chapter of any of the national Black police organizations across the country.
You know, there was an incident, and I don't know if you have if you are aware of this, but there's a brother man from the Greensboro Police Department who I had an opportunity to see a video. He was talking about the George Floyd situation a few months ago, and I guess his department took issue. You know how that goes, right? They took issue with him speaking out, and he didn't say anything that was over the top. He just, said what we know to be true. Four grown ass men sitting on another man's neck for 8 minutes is nothing um, but punishment in my mind. Now, he didn't say that, but nonetheless, what ultimately happened is that he wound up losing his job. And so I had reached out to him. His name is Jaquay Williams. Have you seen the video, Sheriff? Do you know anything about
No.
this young man's story? I
Nope.
reached out to him because, I wanted him to know that he's not alone, right? That there are folks like us who can stand with him, and told him to, figure out what it is that he wants to do long term, what's his end game, and then hopefully he'll reach back out to me, and I'd like to bring him on here and just introduce him to my platform and see what we can do, because I think when folks are allowed to operate in a vacuum, it's very easy for them, if I could just say it like this, fuck us over. Right? When you don't say anything because you think, oh, if I don't say nothing, maybe they'll use the small penis and not the big one, right?
Mm. Mm.
And so I wanted him to know that there are folks who are willing, ready, and able to stand with him. So I'll share his information with you when we get off here. But it's stories like his and others who have either spoken truthfully or who have spoken out about things that have happened that happened in their presence, and then they wind up paying a price, which is generally losing your job. Did you have, because I never had this happen, I said this before, that I thought I was fortunate in that folks didn't know what to make of me when I was on LAPD. So when I worked with a white officer, they didn't do that bullshit that they would normally do because they weren't sure if I had their back, right? Did you ever have instances when you were working with a partner where you had to step in and stop misconduct, or did they tend to not do it around you too?
Well, once they saw that I would jump in and stop, then they tend not to do it around me. I had a situation one time because I was out in patrol, and the call came out, stolen vehicle. The guys jumped out and ran. The description was white t-shirt, jeans, and sneakers. So when I pull up, you had these two brothers, these two police officers who happened to be brothers, who happened to be white, had these two black males stopped. And so I'm looking at them. Now, these black males on a Friday night had Stacey Adams shoes on, silk and wool pants, nice silk shirt. And to me, they looked like they was on their way out, and they had them stopped. And I'm like, what y'all grabbing them for? They the ones jumped out of the car. I said, hold up. Your description was white t-shirt, jeans, and sneakers. Well, when the hell did they have time to change between you chasing them and you stopping them right here? Well, they're the ones that did it. So I walked up to the brothers. I checked them. I said, where y'all going? We was on our way to the club. We was on our way. I said, they had no more jump out of no daggone car running in them Stacey Adams shoes, and them silk shirts are not sweating, and you said white t-shirts. I said, I tell you what, you try to put them on this here, and I'll put them in my car, and I'll take them to internal affairs, and I'll be their daggone witness. You're not going to do that in front of me. They're like, oh, dag. They tried to do a thing one time when the thing was to kick the brothers between the legs. So one cop, whatever he was doing, he broke his own chain. And he tried to go after a brother saying that he broke his chain that was on his neck. And he went to kick at him. And I sort of like jumped right in between them, like, oh, you ain't doing that. What's this? Kick the brother between the leg thing? All of a sudden, my name became Angela Davis. So when I pull up on the scene, either it's a right thing or it's a get out the way thing. And then the first thing they say, here come Angela Davis. They get in them cars and be booking. So yes, stop them, put myself in the middle of it, and dare them to try to come at me. Because see, the one thing I understand about this game is I'm trained just like every last one of them. And I can articulate how I dealt with you when I had to shoot your ass if you come up against me crazy. Trust me, that was not a problem. And I would tell them that. I'm trained just like you. So don't come this way. And I've been taught how to testify too. Oh, we'll be testified real clearly if you come this way, stupid. And I got a gun just like you do. We ain't having that. So yes, there are times that I had to jump in, and I didn't have any problem with that because there was no fear in stopping you from harming my people. None. That's why we stand here today, because as NCLOJ, we don't have that fear of anybody coming this way because we know the players, we know how to deal with them. And if we can't deal with you in that manner, we got about 5 lawyers that ain't got a problem with stepping up to you.
You know, we know what the problem is, and while I don't mind highlighting some things because folks may hear stuff for the first time, I really am about, let's fix it, right? How do we solve this issue? And so from your perspective, given your lived experiences and the things that you know to be your truth over there on the Philadelphia Police Department as an officer and now as a sheriff, and then we're going to talk a little bit about that. What do you say to people who are disenfranchised, who are frustrated, who feel like they're not going to do nothing? Why am I going to tell? Because that's what we do, and we generally don't, and that's why we get what we get. But what would you say to people would be your best counsel if you were dealt with let's say, a Derek Chauvin when he was somewhere around personnel complaint 6 or 7 before they allowed him to continue to live to offend again to get to number 18, right? And then kill George Floyd. What would you say to someone about best practices in dealing with an errant officer? You know my thing. I say comply and complain. I want you to survive the encounter. What do you say?
Well, I say comply and complain about them. But we have to be able to make the complaint. Here's what happens in these departments. And this started happening probably in the last 10 years, that when you complain about them and you keep complaining about them, it brings attention to them. And then the department has to now pay attention to these complaints about them. Because if they don't, it becomes money that they lose out of that department because the lawsuits are coming afterwards. See, our people learned how to get a lawyer now. And there are plenty of lawyers nationally that would take these cases. And so the department and the city loses money when they ignore these complaints against these bad apples. And so you have to complain. You can never say they ain't gonna never do nothing. Because if you complain, Mike complained, Sally complained, Rochelle complained, Cheryl complained, John complained, Hakeem complained. At some point, there's a red flag saying that we got a nut out here that we keep getting these complaints against. And so we need to pay him some attention, or pay her some attention, so we can see what's going on here, because later on down the line, them lawsuits will be coming. So you have to complain. And so you don't want to do a battle with them out on the streets, because I say the police department is part of the biggest gangs that they have in each of these cities. So what you don't want to is to get in the battle with them on the streets, because they can call in all they members, and then all their members can oppress you. You want to just at this point take good notes, who they are, car, badge number, keep calm, say nothing, and then be able to, it's like you want to lose the little battle, because little battles you can lose, but you want to win the war. And the war is the biggest thing that you want to win, because you want to be able to go in with all your information and document the fact that you had to deal with this person, get that information so they can get them off the streets. We don't want these bad apples on our streets. We don't want them in the institution of law enforcement. We don't want them there. But if you don't complain about it, that allows them to keep doing and going to the next person. See, that next person may cause that person their life, because this person was able to just keep doing what they're doing, and they get complacent. So where they think, well, ain't nothing gonna happen to me. Ain't nobody gonna complain about me. And so it goes up and up, and then that aggression gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So when they think that they got carte blanche to do what they want to us, that's when the problem really comes in. So you don't let them get away with even the smallest incident. Don't let them get away with the smallest incident, because it can roll downhill and become a big old snowball. And then we are the ones that had to take the brunt of that. So you got to complain. You got to speak up, and you just can't let them. But you ain't got to do it right then, because like I tell you, police departments are the biggest gangs in the city. You got to be able to you got to be able to take your time, get that information, and report it. And if you can't report it to those police departments, in every city, there's a Black civic organization that you can go to. And if you can't, you can email me and I'll send you the one in your city that you can complain about. Complain to them about any officer in your city that need to be dealt with.
What's your email, Sheriff?
My email's my name, Rochelle, Rochelle. The number's 369 at AOL.com. Now, if you're a crazy person, you want to email me something crazy, just note, I know how to track you down.
I was gonna say that don't sound like your official email. You want me to put that one out there? Or you want the sheriff one? Which one? What are we doing?
Oh yeah, you know what? That's the one that I track most of the time. They ain't gonna send them to the sheriff office.
Okay, all right. Cause girl, you know, like I know, and we never talked about this. I don't know if you get batshit crazy coming for you, like I get batshit crazy coming for me. And you know, I used to engage them every now and again because I just want them to understand that my silence is not agreement. I will turn into Shaquita if you need me to, right? Yeah, I can flip from CNN, Cheryl, and I can give you what you want, but I try to, you know, just let people do what they do. Have you understand your agreement is not required. Most time I have no fucks to give. And so if you just know that, then your day will go along a lot smoother. So I have people come for me, and I'm sure you do too. And so with that in mind, what made you decide to run for sheriff, girl? Because I have people asking me all the time, why don't you run for office? And I'm like, ooh wee, why y'all trying to kill me? I'm staying in my lane. I do this real well. You know, I can talk a little shit every now and again, but I just feel like I don't want to be beholden to anyone, to constituents, to donors, whatever. I can't be me. Can you be you?
Oh, I'm still me. See, here's the deal with this one. I've been in the community my entire life, and especially in my law enforcement life. So I work with community people. So I know people. They know me. They know that I'm going to be me. No matter where I go, I'm going to be me. I'm not changing. I'm not settling. So basically, I ran for office because I saw this office. There were members in the sheriff's department, was members of the Guardian Civic League. And they kept coming with these sort of like crazy things that were happening in the sheriff office to them by the present sheriff at the time. And the present sheriff at the time was a friend of mine. And I basically went to him and said, look, whatever you're doing, you need to stop. Because they're coming to my organization complaining about the stuff that you were doing, taking them through. But that didn't stop. Instead of stopping, he went more on in and retaliating against them. And so out of all of that and the total disarray the office has been for decades, I felt as though that I can make a change in it for the better. Not only for the better for the officers that are there, but also for the better for the community. Because it deals with a whole lot of entities in that sheriff office. Sheriff cells, most people that know anything about the sheriff office, all they know is the bad stuff. That they come out, take your home, take your possessions, you know, just come out there and serve you. And for Black people, when you get into that part where you are losing your home for whatever reason, you don't reach out. You don't read the bottom print that's about a speck. You get depressed, you go home and you shut your door. And so therefore that's allowed to proceed. And the next thing you know, you out on the streets. I thought that because nobody knew nothing about the sheriff office other than the bad stuff, that I needed to educate our community on actually what the sheriff office does in this city and implement programs to show families how to save your homes. When you get into this here, you can't go in and shut the door and get depressed. You need to fight for what you rightfully own to try to save your home and try to keep communities at whole, dealing with all this gentrification that's coming on, because they're selling off all our communities we took for granted. They're selling it off by leaps and bounds. So I felt I can do a better job in reshaping the sheriff office and educate people on what it does. And also it's gathered much information as I can locally, statewide, as to how you can save your home and how you can keep communities at a whole and educate the community on all those. You may not be going through it, but you may have somebody that you know may have fallen on the hard times and that is going through it. And here's these programs that they can help them save their homes, or at least help them fight for their property. So that's what made me decide to run for sheriff. And I ran against the party. I think I raised about a good $30,000 or $40,000 only, when most people told me I need like 2.5 million to do it, and I didn't. And I was out there with the community so they knew who I was. And so I beat all my opponents by double digits, all of them. That's why I'm the sheriff today. And I'm going to be me every step of the way.
Are you guys hiring?
Oh yeah, we about to put a new test together, because whatever test they had before, I don't know if that's going to work for what I want to move the sheriff office into. So we're putting that test together, and when we do, I'll put it out there and let you know we hiring. So if you want to come to Philadelphia and be a sheriff, or if you're already living in Philadelphia, go to phillysheriff.com and you will see it on our webpage.
What do you think about defunding the police?
You know what? I think that most people don't really understand what that means, because when I talk to everybody, it's a different meaning from everyone. It's like, oh, defund, that means we won't get rid of the police. Oh, defund, that we're going to take a little bit of money from the police. Oh, defund, we're going to replace the police with social workers. It means so many different things to folks that there's not one set explanation or definition for most of the people that I've talked to.
Do you see it solving the problem? Because I don't.
No. I don't.
It's the culture, right? It's what's in their head, right?
Yes. So defunding them will not change anything. And when people say that there are places where they got rid of the police department, so could they take Camden, New Jersey, for instance? Oh, they got rid of the whole police department. Now but that department don't look nothing like us. It had some of us at one point, but now it has very little. So be very cautious of what you ask for, because you may get it, but it's not going to be really what you want. So defunding the police it's changing the culture of policing. And see, this is when I get on my soapbox here.
Go ahead, girl. Do your thing.
I'm just saying. Too many people talk about what the police should be doing, how they should be doing, why they should be doing. I'm saying to you that if you want to change the culture of police, you need to be one. Then you be the change you want to see. You be the police person that you want to see on your street, on your block, riding in cars, answering calls. You be that one. You be the change. You can't keep putting off what you want other people to do when you can do this yourself. So join the force. Be the change you want to see. Be the stopping anybody that's your colleague from doing anything crazy. Be the one that talk to people in your community, walk with people in your community. Be the one that volunteer to work with the young people in your community. You be the change. You got to stop putting it off. That's like me putting off my job to you. And now you come in here and you do this while I get paid. Come on now. Be realistic. Stop trying to tell everybody else how change is supposed to be. Since you have all that knowledge, then you be the change you want to see. Join the force. Because a lot of us are retiring out. Other people are telling their children to become cops, but we're not telling ours. Then if you don't want your department to turn 180 around as to who are the police out there, other than people that look like you and me, then you need to be the change you want to see. Step up to the plate. That's my soap opera box.
You know, I was up last night with some of the family and here in the barbershop. We have a really spirited discussion every Wednesday. I am invited into the men's arena, if you will, on Wednesday nights, and we just kind of, chop it up. And so we were up late last night talking about this whole election, girl. And I just want to get your thing and your opinion and see what you think, because I'm of the opinion that this is the hand that we've been dealt. This ticket that we have is what we have. And while it's not a perfect ticket, none of them are. That's the whole problem I have with politicians, right? I think a lot of them, no matter their ethnicity, will say one thing and then do something completely different when they get in office. But what can we do? What can we do January 21st? Because I'm believing and praying to my Jesus that this dumbass is going to be voted out. Now, he's not going to leave quietly. So I that's a whole nother conversation, because I think they're going to have to use a jackhammer to get his ass out of there.
I don't care if he don't leave quietly. I'd be like, I just want to wake up and say, lock him up. That's what I want to say. I want to be able to jump up and say, lock him up. Lock him up. This crazy fool. And the Republicans just use him just to, they know he's crazy. So they say, well, I'm going to use this puppet to sneak in the bigot type of racist type of policies that they've been trying to get since we came out of slavery. That basically they didn't want us to be free. And so they've been trying to chop at every little thing that made us free or made us equal this whole entire time. So I just want him gone. And if he doesn't want to leave easy, drag him out by that whatever he got on top of his head.
Well, they were willing to do what we want as Black folks. They were willing to hold their nose and deal with his crazy ass, because he's addressing their agenda, right? He's doing the things that they lifetime appointments on judicial benches with people who are inept and ill-suited for that. 2 Supreme Court nominees that can affect my children and grandchildren. What do we do January 21st? God willing, we have a Biden-Harris president, vice president. What should we be doing going forward? What should we be asking them for? Who should we be talking to get the kinds of change that a lot of people think ain't gonna come no matter who's in office? What do we do January 21st?
Well, we need to start now as developing what the Black agenda is. Because I asked a lot of people, what do you want as a Black person if you get the Biden and Harris in office? What do you want? What's your agenda? What's your modus operandi? What do you want done? So you need to start with your agenda right now. And at the 21st, you need to hold people accountable. So we go vote, we go home. We go vote, we go home. No, hold the people accountable that you do vote for. Come the 21st, you need to be at the doorstep. This is the time that Al Sharpton need to have a march in Washington, D.C. The 20th, well, it might be too cold for us to get there. So we ain't going to be standing out in the cold like that.
Unless it's for some sneakers or a new iPhone, right?
As soon as the weather breaks, we should be having that march on Washington, D.C. to say, look, this is what we want you to basically push for, because we are going to hold you accountable to basically what you ran on. We're not going to pull the lever, press the button, send in the ballot, and go home. No, we're going to be up and personal in your face, because this is what we want. Your agenda should be heard, and you should start doing that right now.
What do you think about, what some of these leaders are purporting as police reform? There's talk about a national registry, and I say that these jackasses are already on a list. Derek Chauvin was on one. He'd been involved in 18 personnel complaints. Garrett Rolfe, the officer who shot and killed Rashard Brooks, was on a list. He had been involved in other incidents. What do you think about this purported reform? Is it them blowing smoke up our ass yet again? Or do you think these things that they are proposing are real measures that can make a difference?
If we can get it as the House passed one, if we can get a Senate in to basically vote some of this stuff in, I think they are tangible, because right now we're in a movement. We're in a movement for change, and we're not stopping. The movement has to continue. So I'm thinking that if we get the change we need to see in DC from that Senate, because the House is already, and Congress is already passing stuff through. If the Senate passes it through, we got some real reform going on, and people need to pay attention. Police, when you go half-cocked, you will lose your job and you will get arrested. So there's no longer that blanket, because the ones that have gotten arrested and then they get away, but the ones that are getting arrested and getting convicted is the other thing. So we need to keep the pressure on, keep the movement going, though we know that let me just say this, because I don't want everybody thinking we are so down on cops. There are a lot of law enforcement professionals that do the job and do it very well and are fair and just to people, all races and cultures of people. They are. Some of them go, I know some of them, they go above and beyond to just basically make a difference in a lot of communities. There are. But what messes us up is when we have them bad ones and the good ones say nothing. They keep it sit and quiet. They say nothing. That's the problem we're having. So yes, I'm like the glass half filled. I'm saying that the movement is pushing towards some change. And as long as the movement keep pushing, we get some change in that top class of the White House, then those reforms that are going through will finish going through. And you have some tangible change. And it send a message to anybody that think that if you're in law enforcement, that you can do whatever you want to do. That's something that they will not be able to do anymore with the reform. So I'm half full. I'm praying that these movements keep pushing this change, and that people will see that there will be a change at some point at the end of this road.
What about qualified immunity? What's your thought and position on that?
Oh, definitely they need to take qualified immunity out. You can't just, I'm a cop and I do this and I do it wrong. And so the city pays for you. The city, you get sued and the city pays for you, and you walk away with your job and you still, and nothing happens to you. I'm thinking that if you are a bad cop out there and you do something, then part of that lawsuit need to come out of your pocket as soon as one or two lawsuit is attached to their paycheck. That means you take home $5,000 and now you only take home $1,500. Will send a message that I'm not going to do anything to take money out of my pocket. So let me straighten my butt up. But that needs to happen, because they need to know that we can reach out and touch them other than their job, but also in their pocket and that wallet of theirs. Yeah, that needs to change.
And I think my hope is, as folks are listening to us speak, I hope that you are hearing the words that we're using, and then you will repeat these when you have an opportunity to get in front of a police chief, a sheriff, a local politician, and speak to them in this way, so that they know, these are not my garden variety Negroes talking to me right now. They seem to know a thing or two about a thing or two, right? And so, the other thing that I talk about is, because I hear so many folks say, well, why don't the good cops tell on the bad cops? If you're not telling, then you're a bad cop. And so what I say is, and I would like to see people do, is hold the police chiefs accountable, because the fish rots from the head. And every police chief was once a police officer. And so when they get on TV and start clutching their pearls and acting surprised that they have an officer who's been engaged in police misconduct, and now because they didn't check them 17 times before, they are now in the midst of a murder investigation, maybe if the police chief would create a safe zone, because there's no such thing as whistleblower protection. You guys know this to be true. We've seen what's happened in the White House with folks who have come forward and told at that level. So if you understand a Lieutenant Colonel Vindman can lose his job because he does the right thing and reports malfeasance, misconduct, criminal activity, you understand that a little old police officer can very easily be made to go away. But a police chief who has great autonomy can change all of that if they wanted to. And so I would encourage everyone to demand that police chiefs create a safe zone so that officers are not retaliated against when they do come forward. Why would anybody on any job report a coworker doing something that they shouldn't be doing if you know you don't have the support of your CEO, right? Would you agree?
I definitely agree. That I used to always say that they need to have a witness protection for cops. That's what I'm saying, because when you speak out, these people can retaliate against you. Look, my life was threatened. So, you know, you need to have a witness protection program for cops. And so, yes, they need to be able to have a safe zone, because you can't put the poster up there talking about report corruption and you do nothing to help them, and you do nothing to keep them safe, and you do nothing to keep them from being retaliated against. You can't post that up and want them to come forward and you do nothing to support it. Yes, police chiefs, mayors, deputy mayors, I mean, hit them all, because you can't ask us to do something and report this as law enforcement professionals, and then you go out and you say, well, y'all got to report the crime or the bad people that's out there shooting in your neighborhoods. You want people to report that, but yet you, on this other hand, you're like talking out of both sides of your face. That's some hypocritical stuff there. So that needs to be done, and I am 100% agreement. I just called it witness protection for the cop.
You know, we have a situation that's kind of getting crazy and a lot of attention here in LA. We have a sheriff's department, LA County Sheriff's Department. They are second largest law enforcement agency here in Southern California. Second, I think, only to LAPD. And they got a situation, girl, listen, they got whole gangs. They have 17 different gangs within that organization who have been identified. They have a group called the Executioners. For my LA family, the Executioners are holding down Compton Station. Yeah. And then they have the Vikings. I don't know what station the Vikings are holding down, but those are the shot callers within the sheriff's department who are acting as gangsters who get tatted. They have gangster sheriffs in the jail who are receiving tats, right? You know how in the streets you get a teardrop if you murder somebody. Well, in the jail, you break a bone, yeah, you get tatted. It's bananas. And the deputy sheriff, a guy by the name of Paul Tanaka, who I think is serving time for something else, he was a damn Viking. And so we've got the sheriff here who's clutching his pearls and acting like, what? Gangs? He grew up on the sheriff's department, so you know he's been intellectually dishonest when he pretends not to know. And we know this to be true because he recently said in an article that was published in the local paper that he wasn't going to go on an inquisition, is what he called it. He's not going to go on an inquisition to try to find out who these officers are in these, he calls them cliques. So that lets me know that Sheriff Alex Villanueva really doesn't have an appetite to deal with these errant officers who are out there killing folks with impunity, who are out there breaking bones in the jail. And it would be very easy to identify these guys because, you know, Rochelle, you stood at inspection, you know, when they're looking to make sure your gig line is straight and your shoes are shine, your badge is right. All he got to do is have an inspection at all of his little stations and tell everybody either fucking drop your pants or open up your shirt. I'm looking for tats. He doesn't want to do it. So I think he doesn't want to change the culture. He doesn't want to solve the problem. But everybody understands that sheriffs are elected. LA County, y'all elected this fool.
He doesn't want to do the job. Basically, he's part of the good old boy network. As far as he said, he act like he doesn't know, but he knows. Anytime you come to the department, you know who the players are. You know who they are. And you know who their children are. Now, don't forget, they come on, then their children come on. So you know who they are, and you're going to play like they need to be a recall vote for his behind. He don't want to do an acquisition. He don't want to check out those that are doing people harm. He needs to go.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, he was recently voted in, and so it's going to take a minute for LA County to get their mind right and decide if they want to give him another term or not. I was talking to a gentleman today. I'm going to do a Zoom conference later this year, and it's going to involve this female chief. Trying to remember what agency she's from, but I'm a little hard on folks who look like us, who head up departments, because I often say that all Skinfolk and Kinfolk, now you family, I want everybody to be clear. But have you had an opportunity in the time that you've been elected as sheriff are you guys having any meetings, whether it's Zoom or not, where you've had an opportunity to interact with any of these? Because there's quite a few sister girls who are now being appointed police chief, but I wonder, in the instance of this one I'm thinking of right now, and I'm going to try to say her name, I wonder if they are not setting them up to fail, or if they're just appointing, the ones who get to breathe that special air, who go along to get along. Is that what's going on? Like Sister Girl in Houston or in Dallas, Renee Hall. I try not to do black on black crime. I hate it. But she's been a major disappointment to me. Are you finding anybody else who looks like you, who's female and talks like you, or are you a unicorn?
No. There are newly appointed people that are in, and due to the COVID situation, I'm allowing them to be able to get feet in and begin to do what it is that they need to do. I try not to come on the newly appointed ones so that they can get an opportunity to basically put their stuff to action. People come very hard on Black females when they first get somewhere, because they expect them to just miraculously get rid of all the crime in like 4 months that they've been in office. But when any man that had that, they ain't said nothing like that for years. So the females that I know that are in, that just got in, they're basically feeling their way and developing their programs so that they can reach out and do what it is that they need to do. So I try not to be too harsh on them.
Isn't there a sister girl in Philadelphia, a Black chick who just, what's her name?
Outlaw.
That's who I'm thinking of, because I've talked a little bit of shit about her on my podcast, because she came from a department where they kind of said, they really didn't support her, that, she didn't do well because she didn't have that support. And you understand coming in how important a support system is.
Yes.
And so again, I hate to do the black on black crime, but your girl concerns me. Did they set her up to fail? Because I'm hearing that she's surrounding herself by people who may or may not have her back.
Well, you have to get in there, and you have to begin to develop. I think she has a very good head on her shoulders. I think she's a smart young lady. I think that she is basically filling out the people around her, whether they are good or not. She deals with them directly. When she deals with an order, if I say to you, consult with me, you consult. When you don't, you get demoted or you get up out of here. But she just got there. And so you can't be hard. You talk about 4 months. So you got to give her time to fill out people, whether, she can leave the kitchen open to them to do their job. There's some good people that I know that are around her. And there's some people that she probably has to get to know whether they are or aren't. Because I can come to you and say that girl's bad, but hell, that girl might turn out to be the best thing in the world for you. So you got to be able to form your own opinion on people. You put them in place and you give them the opportunity to either succeed or fail. Because if they fail, then they're gone. If they succeed, they still stay around. Because I've done that in the sheriff's office. You get there, your job is either to succeed or fail. And if you fail, I ain't got a problem with getting rid of you. And I have done that. And so don't be too hard on a sister girl. We don't do that to the men that be there for 4 or 5 months and expect miracles from them. You got
Listen, girl, I talk a lot of shit, and I'm equal opportunity. I call a thing a thing. I'm just saying. Now, she serves at the pleasure of the mayor, or
the mayor.
is it a city manager? And so, is she free to be herself, or does
Yes.
she have to kind of check in with them? In other words, do they have her on a short tether? Because I really wish her well. I just, from the outside looking in, it just looks like she's a little timid. It looks like she's not really sure. See, I know, sister girl, if we talked about this, it's a little bit easier to, do what you do when you got a pension and you really have no fucks to give, because you could just go back to that, right? You'll eat meat whether you're the sheriff or not, right?
That's what I'm talking. See, I'm a different kind of person. You see, I'm towards a pension. I already got one.
That part.
So that makes it really different and a lot freer.
Yes.
Working towards a pension, you got to be a little careful if you want to get that pension. But I'm just saying, you got to give people an opportunity. I'm not criticizing what she's doing, because I've worked in Philadelphia my entire life, and so I know the players that are around her, and I know he has to be able to recognize as to who is there in support of what her plan is and who isn't. It takes you a minute, because you can only hold, people can only pretend but so long before the real person shows up. That's like my grandmother said, you can only hold that shit for so long, but at some point it's going to come out whether you want it to or not.
Yeah, then there's that.
Can only pretend for so long, and I think she's a very bright young lady, and that she will figure it out as to what it is that she needs to do as far as the people that are around her.
Okay, well, I'm not gonna put you, on the spot, because I know you in Philly with her, but I'm just still trying to figure out if she really kinfolk. I don't know. I don't know.
I've talked to her. She kinfolk.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, I'm gonna keep an eye. I'm gonna keep an eye. I'm gonna keep a, what they say. I'm gonna put a flashlight on that ass and during the day, right? Just see. I'm gonna just see. But I want to thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me, and I hope we can do this again soon. I would like to, at some point, if we could get the slippery guys from the NCLEOJ to, be present and come join us and talk the way that we do when things happen on a national level that we want to address, either individually, you as Sheriff Bilal, me as the shit talker, and NCLEOJ. I would like us to be able to do that. And I did reach out to Jaquay Williams while we were talking, and I think he might be on here. Jaquay, if you're on here and you feel comfortable, just send me a what's up in the comments and let me know. This is one of the people that I had shared with you, Jaquay, if you're here, who can point you in the right direction of some folks who can just give you additional counsel. And at the end of the day, whether it's you, Jaquay, or anyone else who might be in law enforcement, who might be listening and who can't speak up because of that whole thing that we've talked about, retaliation, you can send me an email as well. And I'm going to put in the comments, it's Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey is my email account at Gmail. And you can send me at gmail.com. You can send me a message, and if you have an issue, you have a question, you need some direction, or you just need to get some shit off your chest, I got an ear for you. I will listen and point you in the right direction, give you my best counsel. Rochelle, thank you so much for being with me, sister girl. I appreciate you. And I want us to be able to do this again when time permits. I know that you have a real job, and you can't do this like I do it, but whenever you want to come back, just let me know. And when I want you to come back, I'll do the same thing. Thank you so much, family. Thank you guys for tuning in, for listening, for chiming in, asking questions, and I will see you good people again on next week. So until then, family, be good, be safe.